Hello, everybody. Uh, I am at my local dive bar, and unlike how John's Longbox envisions this bar, this is not a old school Spanish uh, 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 English pub with a buxom blonde bartender. It's a dive bar. It's actually listed as a nuisance bar by the police in the town. It is a dive bar. Okay. You don't want to bring your kids here. How's that? And the don't have a buxom uh, bartender, but I do have a dirty blonde, fiery tempered girl who makes the best cherry cokes. I love cherry coke. And most places when I go to go, so we go out to eat and whatnot, and I ask for a cherry coke. A lot of times it's I gotta get Coke with grenadine, and most people they just pour the grenadine in, then pour the soda in. So it's no, you can't taste the grenadine at all. Or they'll pour the soda in, then they'll pour the grenadine on top, so you get a little bit, but not much. What my bartender does is she will fill the glass up with ice. She will then pour the grenadine over, so it drips down all over the ice. Fills it up with soda. She then gently pours it into an empty glass, and then pours it back into the original glass. So the grenadine is completely mixed in with the Coke and is the best. I mean, you taste the grenadine throughout the whole drink. It is marvelous. And then what she does also is, because I'm always doing my work here and I'm doing a lot of commissions, she will take that now empty glass with Coke and grenadine residue in it. She'll fill it up with water, hand me that glass, and then what I do then is, you see here, that's the commission I'm working on. I need an easel. So she gives me that glass full of water, so I now have an easel. So, and right here it is, folks. Right there, look at that. That is a cherry Coke. Grenadine all the way through it. From the first sip to the last drop, I will be tasting the grenadine in with the cherry Coke. Marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. So, now, folks, when it comes to comic books, which is why you're all here, we are on week 44 of Signed Comics. We are days 298 through 304. Yep, we're heading into the final stretch. Last 65 books of their signed for 2025 are being posted. So, and we start off day 298 with X-Men Annual number 7. This was the scavenger hunt with the Impossible Man, where the X-Men are basically chasing the Impossible Man throughout the Marvel Universe as the Impossible Man goes around the Marvel Universe and gets souvenirs. And they've got to go up against him. And of course, I don't have the signature, but it was drawn by Michael Gold. Gold did a great job. And I don't have him, but I have Chris Claremont's signature on this book. I've got Steve Leola, Joe Rubenstein, Bill Anderson, and Tom Mandrake. The reason why I've got so many signatures on this book was because Michael Gold, they needed a lot of inkers for this book. And I mean a ton of inkers. So anytime I had the opportunity to meet one of the inkers on this book, I'd have them sign it. So I've reached the point where I'm looking at it going, and this has nothing to do with the possible value of the book moving forward. This has to do with, I've got all these signatures, but I don't have Michael Gold's signature. So it's one of those where it's like, you know what? I think it's time to finally pull the trigger. And next time I see Michael Gold at a convention, have him sign this book. Just because add his signature to everybody else's signatures. I mean, it's kind of like when you've gone as far as you got Chris Claremont to sign it, you gotta get Michael Gold's signature. So, and this was just a fun book. I mean, and this is the thing is, I remember when annuals were fun, and this was like it was a you didn't have to worry about it was like a break in the story of the main title, and it was just a fun book. And then of course, and then of course also with X-Men, a lot of times for a while there, the annuals had significance to the overall story and lore of the X-Men, which brings us to 299 Uncanny X-Men Annual number 9, signed by Art Adams when they go to Asgard. And I remember I got this off the shelf, and I still hadn't gotten uh, New Mutants Special number 1. So I was reading the second half of the story and going, oh wow, this is so cool. And mainly what it was, this was Art Adams' artwork. And you're looking at how he put so much detail and so much texturing into his stuff. And I remember this was one of those books where it's like he was really according to a post by Rob Liefeld, he was just a kid, a fan, and he was at I guess the uh, uh, San Diego Comic Con, and the editor at the time here, they were late on the book, and the editor was scrambling just to get inkers to finish the book, and was basically running around to every single table going, hey, we're behind, can you ink this page? And Rob Liefeld, I guess, was standing there at Mike Mignola's table and asked him if he would do a book. And Mike was like, yeah, sure. And so he got to see this page before Mike Mignola inked it. So Rob was and here's the thing, I mean, for all the shit that Rob goes through, and here's the thing, in many ways, does Rob deserve the criticism he gets? Yes. Does it need to be unmercifully? No. I think in some ways he not he. Yeah, I don't think he brings upon himself. But I think some people are unrelenting in his criticism. I admit I was one where I went overboard with criticism, but I think a lot of that also has to do with the pure fact that there's a lot of people that are envious of his success. Before I keep going on this, I want to show you guys something. You see how this here is almost a straight jet black, and how this black is speckled? I'm going to have to, like, off camera, I'm not going to do it for you guys now, but what I'm going to do is, when I get done with this video, I'm going to hit this area with that intensity, so that way this type of level of blackness is reflected here. And what that'll do is that'll help pull this middle part and create separation from here to here to here. And again, notice, remember, how I've got this one strip, the trim, how it's completely stark white. I've done it here and here for you guys just now. The point of it is for those that when the colorist, when he goes to do this, he'll put this red trim, and that way the red will stand out against the blackness. So that's why I'm doing that. So that's why. So, but so 299, signed by Art Adams. This was like my first real introduction to Art Adams, not the Long Shot miniseries. And this was, I would say, this was the book that put art on the map. And then following year, day 300, X-Men Annual number 10, which was the Mojo verse, which also resulted in the X-Men being de-aged, first to teenagers, then just to little babies, and bringing Longshot onto the team. This was also a perfect example of, at the time, art. Part of the story was the New Mutants have to go up against the X-Men, so they have to get out their graduation costumes, and that, and as it said in the book, how it was like, if we fail, we are the new X-Men. And the costume designs were awesome. They were just on key, on point, with reflective of every single member of the New Mutants. And I think about how, like, when Brett Blevins was doing the New Mutants title. He had them in those costumes for the first like story arc with Birdbrain. But then as he continued on the book, he gave them new costumes. Brett Blevins' costumes, compared to Art Adams' costumes, were dog shit. This is nothing against. It's like, no, the costumes that Art drew and designed for the annual were perfect. They're awesome. We love them. And then we got these little spandex pieces of shit from Brett. So, and this is where everyone's like, am I being a little over dramatic in how I'm presenting the information? Maybe, but it's one of those where it's like, if you're going to redesign someone's costume, you better make damn sure, and I mean damn sure, that hands down, by and large, your costumes are vastly superior to what the predecessor is. And Brett didn't do it. It was easier for him to draw. I mean, you know damn well that's the reason why he designed the costumes the way he did when he was doing it, because it was easier for him to draw them. But I'm sorry, if we, the fans, love these costumes and then you give us what you did, nah, it's failure. So, but no, this is again, it got to the point where it's like, oh wow, we got another annual by Art Adams, and we were expecting almost, and for me as a fan, I was expecting each annual to be done by Art Adams. And then with annual number 11, we didn't get that. So then the following year, in annual number 12, when the X-Men were basically invisible to technology and everybody thought they were dead, we got annual number 12, again signed by Art Adams. This was the Evolutionary War. This was one of those, when they did the Evolutionary War, they did a lot of like one issue stories that were, they didn't really mean anything. Chris Claremont, when he did his Evolutionary War tie-in with the X-Men annual, he made it mean something. He brought back the Savage Land, and it was just a well done story. And of course, art. We have the story uh, of the X-Men. We bring back the X-Babies. Art Adams doing the story, whatnot, and then of course also we got some Easter eggs or some clues of potential further stories with these characters. And I think about how Colossus, how at the end of the story, he's reuniting with this Savage Land girl who has a son, and she makes reference to the boy's father, not telling Colossus that he's the father, but he's very the son is very reminiscent of his father. So, which is again, that's one of those deals where it's like, if I was one of those deals where it's like, it's been 20 years, 25 years since this annual. If you wanted to do, not retcon, I hate the word retcon, but if you wanted to have like a twist, have where specifically Colossus is having something where he's doing in the Savage Land and reunites with this boy, and the boy's like a young, almost teenager, and it's at this point it's revealed that Colossus is the father, which then brings on the whole Colossus, uh, Colossus having to come to terms with being a father, and is he going to be uh, a father? Is he going to step up and be the role of, okay, you are my son. It's now my duty to, even though you haven't known me your entire life, I'm in your life now, and it's important that I embode upon you uh, uh, the wisdom of and raise you with my values, because that's what the job of a parent is to raise their child in their vein. It's not the grandparents' job. It's not the aunt and uncle's job. It's not the state's job to raise a child. It is the parents' job. So that's where I look at that. And then of course we go from the annuals. We go to Uncanny X-Men issue 193, signed by Chris Claremont. And this is one of the very first. This was one of those books where it's like, for a long time, this was one of the issues that If I could get it signed by Dan Green, if I could get it signed by uh, Romita Jr. or Chris Claremont, I wanted this one signed because it was a precursor really to the Hellions. It basically introduced you to Warpath, and it also it brought this was like I think this if I remember correctly, this was actually Kitty Pryde's return after the Wolverine Kitty Pryde miniseries, where she was now instead of her code name being Sprite, she was now Shadow Cat. So this was again, I looked at it and like this is one of those issues, and plus it's a really good issue. So I wanted it to be I wanted to make sure I had this one signed. And then, of course, we go from that to issue 201 on day 303. Uh, issue 201, Colossus and Storm fight for who will be leader of the X-Men, and Storm doesn't have her powers. And then, okay, full disclaimer, okay. When I first was introduced to the X-Men was in Secret Wars, okay. Then, after Secret Wars, I started picking up X-Men. At this point, it was the first issue I bought. I think it was like issue 203, 204, or 203. And Cyclops was no longer on the team. I never so for me, I always looked at it like was cool. Storm's a really cool person. She's a mutant that doesn't have powers, but she's respected by her peers. That she's worthy of being the team. That she's worthy of being the leader. And I just always felt that Cyclops is an asshole. I mean, everybody like Cyclops just flat out he's an asshole, and I saw it for me, and then of course going in further because this was my first issue. Of course, I don't know the lore about Jean Grey, so for me, him abandoning Maddie and his son in Alaska to go be with Jean, I was like, hell, he's a two-timing deadbeat dad. Fuck this guy. So again, this issue actually has issue 201 has great significance. Not necessarily for the fight for the team, but because it's the very first issue that we see uh, Scott's son, who later on we'd discover would be Cable. This was very significant, but at the time we didn't know that, and so I just wanted to get it signed because it was like, for me, it was like Rick Leonardi did the pencils for it. I wanted him to sign it. So and that was before I actually had like the uh, the comic book inventory app CLZ, where they have a blue key for a character's first appearance, or a gold key for like a marquee cover style, or first appearance of a significant character who have a great deal of impact and popularity in the universe. No, this issue 201 for me was I liked it because Scott, with his arrogance and having superpowers, got bitch slapped by Aurora with no powers. Without any powers, she still beat the shit out of Cyclops to earn the right to be leader of the team. And I loved it. I loved it. And so later on, like I said, later on when they started X Factor, and he leaves his wife to be with Jean Grey, I mean, my response was, "What an asshole!" Now, bear in mind also, part of this was reflective of my own life. My father left my mother for another woman. Not just another woman, a woman that was only 4 years older than me. Yes. So for me, it's one of those where it's like, oh, Scott Summers is my father. Fuck my father. Fuck Scott Summers. And I still to this day, when everybody talks about Cyclops, my response is fuck Cyclops. He's an asshole. So you can say whatever you want. For me, because my introduction to Scott Summers was because like I said, issue 204 was the issue that I started following the X-Men. So the first time I knew about Scott Cyclops was X Factor number one. Now, bear in mind, after I got into the X-Men, before X Factor number one came out, I did start going and buying the back issue, so I still already knew about Cyclops was the leader of the team for a time, and that he fell in love and married Maddie, but I still hadn't gotten any issues about Jean Grey, so I didn't know the lore. So again, so the whole like, well, you have to understand, Jean Grey is Scott's soulmate. It only makes sense for the two of them to be together. No, he left his wife for another woman. Fuck, and he left his child behind. Fuck Scott Summers. I mean, Jesus Christ! If I was, let's put it this way: if I was Nate, if I was Cable, if I was Nate, the first thing I'd do the very first time I met Scott Summers, I would have punched him in the fucking mouth. You're like, you abandoned me for another one? Fuck you, asshole. So, anyway, get it moving right along. So we go from issue 201, X-Men, signed by Rick Leonardi, to issue 211. Now, bear in mind, again, issue 203, 204 was my first introduction to the X-Men. So I've only been reading the X-Men for maybe a year. And now, issue 211, the 25th anniversary issue of Marvel Comics. And what do we have? Wolverine being his badass self, drawn on the cover, and it's the Mutant Massacre. And so again, it's like a lot of this stuff is all brand new. I'm like, holy shit! This team of evil mutants is just slaughtering all the Morlocks. Holy shit! Holy shit! That guy just fucked up Nightcrawler. Jesus Christ! Colossus just snapped that guy's neck. I mean, you gotta keep in mind, at the time, Wolverine was the badass. And Colossus was one of those characters where he always was kind of like, he knew he had the strength to kill someone, but he was always really super restrained, always restrained himself. And to see him cut loose, just snap Riptide's neck, and just what he says afterwards, I think the Scrambler or Harpoon, how you're next. I mean, it was just like, holy fucking shit. God damn it. Colossus has become a serious badass now. So, I mean, this was just a great issue. So, of course, I had to get signed by Chris Claremont. So, but, okay, so there's the progress. So we've got the cave here. And again, you take notice, I'm not doing anything here. In fact, the only thing I'm going to do is right here. I'm going to put right there, very little. I'm not even connect. So there we go. So when I erase that, you're just going to have a hint of the red trim, and then we'll erase that, and then the colorists will go in and they'll connect all the dots with the trim. So there we go. So like I said, when I get done with this video, I'm going to go in here, and while I'm finishing up this video. So you guys all have a great day. Remember, John's Long Box is still available in Fund My Comic. So if you haven't backed it, go over there, and because he's in fulfillment, you'll be getting the book relatively quickly. Thank you for everybody who likes this video. Make sure you are hitting the video. So John, put down the tape, click like. Marcus, thank you always. You kick the like. Astra Zombie, Michael Snow, if you're watching still, please hit the like button. Everybody, please hit the like button. It helps me a lot. And don't be shy. Okay? You can always leave a comment in the video. So, until then, guys, which hopefully will be just next week, we got another whole week of Uncanny X-Men titles that were signed that I'm posting. Actually, it's all this last week, so you can look at the title, look at the books that were signed on Twitter. And then after that, we go into the V's, which will be Vibe. Yes, the only books I took a look. The only books with Marvel and DC and Independent, the only books with a V that are signed are my Vibe books. So next that following week, which will be, I guess, if I do videos, it'll be next Sunday, will be a video exclusively about Vibe. So until then, life is stressful. Take it all one dot at a time.